emotional intelligence, we got a great show for you. Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. I'm Ryan Morris, and as always, I'm here with your host, Nicholas T. Smith, the author of The Giants and the Smalls. If you haven't joined us on Facebook, A Tribe of Giants, YouTube, you can go to Wake Up with Giants TV, hit the subscribe button, and then the alert button so you know when we go live every single dang time. And then follow us so that you can come to like one of our live events. We did one the other day. It was amazing. It was fun and hopefully impactful for the people that attended. They said it was, so hopefully they were telling the truth.
You weren't crying too much by the end, so that's good.
And then you can come through one of our SG groups. We're wrapping up SG7 and SG8, and we'll start SG9 in the start of the new year. So, and then on Facebook, A Tribe of Giants. It's just a wonderful place for just to connect with people. It doesn't cost anything other than maybe a bit of time and energy if you want to participate.
Yeah, maybe that's a comment here or there. That works, right?
Yeah, come say hello.
Come say hello.
Yeah. Nick, do you have anything else too?
I think in January, we're going to do a live event, but by Zoom so that people can join from all over the world. And so we'll help you get your year launched the right direction with the 12 journeys, and that'll be powerful. So watch for that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Can you introduce our guest?
I would love to.
Awesome.
We've got Dr. Fanike-Kiara Olugbala Young. Did I do that good?
You did well.
Yeah, good. Awesome. So she's an integrated wellness program designer, leadership and emotional intelligence coach, and she uses her experience from clinical and educational training as a doctor of behavioral health, program consultant, licensed trauma therapist, and master Reiki practitioner to design and implement wellness systems for helping professionals such as compliance professionals, attorneys, teachers, doctors, and healthcare professionals. Is that all you do? That's it?
And she's got a toddler.
And she's got a toddler, yeah.
And a mom, so
yeah. And a husband, which is probably even worse than a toddler.
Right.
I know from experience.
Yeah, there are moments. There are moments.
Yeah. Well, you've got 20 years of clinical training and 10 years plus of training design and implementation. And you are the author of, and I'm going to say this, What the Fuck is Your Problem? Becoming an Active Worker and Healing Your Trauma. Well, it has a star, but I don't know how to pronounce the star in there, right?
Yeah, you did good. Yeah,
we'll just say it.
Well,
we're glad to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Because you're going to talk, we're going to dive into your journey. That's our goal here, is to really have others that are viewing see themselves in your journey, and your philosophy is going to come through with that. So we want to go back in time. You choose the point. It doesn't matter where you had an awakening to what you're doing today. Like, why did you wake up and decide this is what I want to do?
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, just a childhood full of trauma.
Okay.
Like there's really no other way around that. There's no way to, I guess, say it nicely so that it sounds great, but a childhood full of trauma. I'm from Brooklyn, New York in the 80s. And, that was just the crack epidemic, and there was a lot of crime, and it was just a lot going on. And I saw my first murder at 4 years old, looking out the window in Brooklyn. And then my dad passed away when I was 6. But before he passed away, he was just very abusive towards my mom, emotionally, mentally, physically, and didn't hide it from us. I was raised in a household with my older sister. And, just seeing all of those things. And I think what really, really pushed me to get into this work was understanding that I had trauma that then later impacted me in adulthood, but also just being raised in a household with a mom who had her own trauma that she hadn't dealt with, which of course became generational trauma for us. And so, all of that plays into the emotional intelligence part, because I think sometimes as humans, we forget that, people go through stuff or they have stuff. And because they've gone through those things, it impacts, it can definitely shape and form how they respond or how they view you or how they talk to you or, their work ethics. And
Yeah.
so, that's how I got here.
That's amazing. With the emotional intelligence that you do, for somebody that's never been taught that, right? So you have to develop this on your own. So when you wake up to that, it's like there's a gap there from traumas, from things I've seen, from abuse. What went on inside of you as far as that journey goes? Like, what judgments did you have? What justifications did you have around that? Can you speak to that a bit?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I would say that, because technically, and I never identified as, I grew up in an abusive household. And I didn't start saying that until I got older.
Yeah.
But the thing is that it impacted, I think, me internally more than it impacted the way that I look at other people. And so, it was the low self-esteem, it was the abandonment issues. I had trouble just trusting people, and I had difficulty loving and receiving love. Just so many different parts, never thinking I was good enough, always feeling like, even though, I've always been like, and I mean, I'm going to just say this, but I've always been super intelligent. I've always been, I've always had leadership skills. I've always had, all of my gifts. I'm a strategist just naturally, but I suppressed so much of those things because I believe that we're all born with natural talents and gifts, like things that you even have to work hard at. And I suppressed a lot of those things because I didn't want attention. And I wasn't taught that, it's okay to just be you. It's okay to be smart. It's okay to, shine. It's okay to take the lead naturally. Like that stuff is great.
Yeah.
You taught that.
You even now, just mentioning, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I'm super intelligent. Like people have a hard time saying stuff like that about themselves, right? They're like, hey, don't be selfish. Don't be self-centered.
Yeah.
And that's not what you're doing at all. You're acknowledging what is.
Yeah.
Right?
Because you know what? The other piece I had to learn about it is if you don't, like, everyone else can tell you whatever they want. Everyone else can tell you how great you are. They can tell you how beautiful you are. They can tell you, how smart you are. But if you don't believe it yourself, it's really irrelevant. It doesn't matter. And a lot of times what happens is when people have endured trauma, especially, they don't believe, they don't think, highly of themselves. They kind of say, no, I'm just like everyone else, but you're not. That story, your story alone sets you apart from every other person. And when I decided to start really embracing my story and saying, hey, this is your story, it's unique to you, right? I was able to really step into who I am and say, it wasn't a hindrance. It wasn't a negative in my life. It was actually something that happened for I can do the work that I do.
That's beautiful because what we hear a lot, there's a lot of people that go through our programs that have had traumas, they've had abuse, neglect. There are some that never have too. Mm-hmm. And so waking up to the idea that, there was something in your life where you're not quite measuring up to where you think you should be in your life. And there's often a sadness around that comes up, or some sort of depression that comes up. We talk about grief in our journeys because often we miss the mark, and people feel really judgmental about themselves about that. But also they start developing stories and justifications for not doing anything about it, right?
Yep.
And so they stay stuck in this cycle, and they take an experience like yours and they say, well, I can't because, and they'll have all these reasons.
Yep.
Right. What would you share with somebody about that?
Honestly, like your story can be the thing that, gets you to the point of building that business that you want to build, or following that dream that you want to follow, or making the amount of money that you want to make. Your story is gold, and even like I said, I had to learn that because when I decided to write What the Fuck Is Your Problem? Becoming an active worker and healing your trauma, it was very therapeutic because I had to open up and share. But I had made the decision that, okay, I'm going to share my story. I need to share my story. And everyone would tell me, you need to share your story. You need to share your story. And I was like, I'm going to do it in a book. And when I wrote that book and was writing the book, the process of it was a lot of tears. It was a lot of, I had to tell my husband, like, before I start writing, hey, I'm about to go write.
Get ready, dude. Yeah.
Because, what happens is things are buried, right? You bury stuff.
Yeah.
And so I'm writing and I'm bringing stuff to the surface that I haven't thought about or processed in years or had never processed, even though it happened to me. So writing the book, a lot of it was me processing in the moment of writing the book. And so it's that raw emotion. So I would have to tell him, like, hey, I'm about to go write. And, I might come out here and see me crying. I'm okay. I'm just I'm writing.
It's so important, right? It's like, hey, we're good. We're good. This had nothing to do with you. So, yeah.
But, a lot of us never have that moment. It's a decision because you have to say, you know what, I'm ready to release, whatever your thing is. I'm ready to release it. I'm ready to let it go. I'm ready to bring it to the surface. And a lot of people never do that. They run from it like their whole lives.
They do. We had a great experience this weekend in our course. And one of the ladies that shared some of her history that went back 60 plus years, a long time, and it's amazing that story has an impact as long as we're not ready to face it, right? So the moment we face it, it tends to dissipate and diminish on its own as we face it and step into it and express what's really going on for us. But so many people run from it, right? They face it and they run, or they faint to it, they fawn to it, whatever it is, they just shut down, What would you share around that for somebody that's maybe going through that?
Yeah, honestly, like, until you decide to face it, I don't like to say overcome. Like, I hear people say overcome trauma. And I'm like, you don't really ever overcome it.
It's not like it goes away and you're just done and you never have the thought again, right?
Exactly. So it's a constant work, even with myself, and I'm a very transparent person. So with my clients that I work with, even, I let them know, like, every day, like, I'm doing work every day. I'm doing affirmations every day. I'm meditating. I'm making sure that I go to the gym. Like, I'm doing this work every day to make sure that trauma doesn't plague me. But what I would say is that, until they decide to actually face it, it's going to do exactly that. It's going to plague them. It's going to, it's going to impact your relationships, impact your finances, impact your business, impact your career. It's so many people out there that are living lives that are not even really true to who they really are at their core, but they can't get to the core of who they are because trauma has literally shaped their lives. This life that's shaped by trauma, and not, like, living the life based on who they are meant to be, when they came, because we all have a path. We all have a mission, right? But you can't access your mission and your path because you're running from facing your trauma. You're running from facing that thing. Like I said, that could very well be the thing that opens you up to access your life, your real life.
Yeah, I have the image of a linebacker, like, blocking your way to your core, right? And not that I follow football in any way, right? My favorite football team is the Grizzlies. That's what I say. That's a hockey team here locally. I don't follow football. But the idea is every time you go to face your core and really dive into your core, there's this big guard there, and it's intimidating, right? But being able to face that and befriend it and embrace it and love all aspects of you, because that's really what it is. That's when you're able to move beyond it, and you don't ever get rid of that guard. It's still there and it's useful, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it comes into place. It's I would say that your ego is the linebacker. Your ego, is that thing that, it steps up, and it's like when you're trying to heal or you're trying to do something new, you're just trying to change the way in which you've been living. Your ego's like, wait, hold on. Wait, this is scary. This is new. This is
hold up,
wait, and so it steps in. But you can, make friends with your ego. Your ego, like you said, is there to protect you. It's like that linebacker. It is there to protect you. So you make friends with it. However, you still have to say, I love that you're protecting me. However, I still have to go and do this work. I still have to move forward. I still have to, heal this part of me. I love you, but
yeah. Just so we're clear, like, I'm going to go write this book and it has nothing to do with you. Right. Exactly. One thing I notice is the more we do these shows, the more Italian I become. My hands start going crazy. Start talking with my hands.
I'm
yeah, you're from yeah, like Talladega Nights, right? Like, what do I do with these? This is beautiful because many of us go through this. I would love to say that all of us go through that, but there are people that don't. They've never had an experience around trauma or neglect. They had really great upbringings, but they're still not living up to their potential because there is a story present. And it might not be a traumatic story, but some people will use their story as a justification to stay the way that they are. And others will use it as a justification to move from where they are, to grow, right? And what I learned is that with justifications, often learning shuts down. When you're justified in your story, that's your truth. You don't have to do anything about it. And often people will support you in that story, right? They'll hold you in that place, right? Yeah. Even though it's not supporting you. Does that?
Definitely. And you know what, Nick, honestly, what I would say is, I think that we all have endured some form of trauma. So sometimes what happens is, when people hear trauma, they think, kind of like my story, like it's like, very clear trauma, like, very, very like easy to identify. However, it can also be, messaging. It can also be, seeing something. It can be hearing something. Somebody just saying, or you overhearing that, oh, you're not gonna make it, or you're not gonna be anything. That can be considered traumatic. It doesn't have to be, a death or a car accident or, something of, something huge. It can literally be, seeing something that deters you or changes your belief in yourself and in other people. And that's how I like to define trauma. Anything that, negatively impacts the way that we see ourselves or the way that we see other people, because it can range. And I don't, I never encourage people to compare traumas. You can grow up in the quote unquote best household, mother, father, siblings, it's happy, and your dad or your mom can show, and from your perspective, favoritism to one of your siblings. And that can be traumatic to you. And it wasn't anything, quote unquote, drastic, but that can be traumatic for you. That can impact how you see yourself. That can impact the way that you see, your siblings, or the way that you see your parent. That can be traumatic for you. So I think that at some point in our lives, we all endure some type of trauma. I think that childhood trauma is really, really difficult because as children, you don't really know how to process oftentimes, what happens. So that trauma stays with you from childhood, usually into adulthood.
This is big right here. Like when you say don't compare traumas, what pops in mind is we're not trading Pokemon cards here, right? Like this isn't what we're doing.
Yeah.
And then going back to childhood, our first language is emotion.
Yeah, definitely.
And so there often there are no words for it.
Right. Exactly.
And so to talk it through isn't even available because when you stored the memory, you didn't even have language to it.
Right. Yeah.
And if you haven't had something that you call like a major trauma, like that's what usually people are thinking of as, like something like seeing a murder or having somebody die or end of a divorce or something.
Yep.
They still have trauma. They just haven't identified it yet. But even like learning these tools, learning these things that we're talking about right now and that we're going to be talking about as we dive deeper into this episode, they can be super useful for when you do go through something, because it's life.
Yeah.
Probably going to experience something major at some point.
Yeah.
Quote unquote major. But then you can start also identifying the other traumas that you've had in your life and heal through those, recognize those things to then improve your relationships, improve your social interactions, your life, et cetera, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I would even say even further that, I won't say after the pandemic because we're kind of still in it,
Yeah.
but after the pandemic, at this point, everyone has endured, some form of trauma, whether, you were able to acknowledge it before the pandemic or not. At this point, we all have, because no one escaped loss. No one, whether that was a person or a job or financial changes, everyone was impacted in some way. And just in that life change that happened immediately for us all, just having to wear masks. And, that within itself, is could be traumatic for someone.
Well, I didn't know how bad my breath was. Nobody ever told me. So put a mask on. It's like, geez.
There was an aluminum can shortage. I freaked out for a second.
Right.
Right. So, that's the whole point. Like, we just don't know how something so small or big impacts someone.
Yeah.
People can see the same incident or go through the same incident and perceive it totally different. So it impact them and impact their nervous systems totally different.
I like that. Dr. Gabor Mate talks about big T trauma, little t trauma, and stress. And there's a distinction between the three. And we all experience stress no matter what, especially in the workplace. And then sometimes there's little t trauma in the workplace. And some occasions, big T trauma in the workplace. And so really just, acknowledging where we are is sometimes the stress can feel like what little t or big T trauma would feel like in the body. And people don't know how to regulate or work with that. We often teach about acceptance, and people struggle with that word. They think I've got to take my life like it is, resign to it. I don't have a say. What's your take on acceptance, and what does that mean to you, and how do you use that when you use it?
Yeah, there's totally different. So, as you just said, like, to say that you are in a place of acceptance doesn't mean that you just have to, like, okay, I'm just going to accept this and take it, how it is. No.
Yeah.
When you say acceptance is, I think, acknowledging and just coming to the place of saying, this has happened to me, or I've been through this, or, this has occurred in my life. And I accept that that is a part of my journey. I accept that this has impacted or affected the way, I now perceive something. I always look for, I'm great at, I'm a serial optimist. So I always, Ryan's
Guilty.
it's like all day, right?
Yeah. Is that cereal like Lucky Charms? Or
yeah. Mine is.
So like serial killer.
Yeah.
So I'm a serial optimist, and whenever I go through something or something happens, I always look for the lesson. I'm always like, okay, what was the lesson in this? And it's because I just can't stay in that place of of the sadness or the whatever, that place. I can't stay there. I can't dwell on that. So for me, it's like, okay, what am I supposed to be getting from this? What is the lesson? So then I can take the lesson, right? That's a part of the acceptance. This has happened. I accept that this has happened. Now, what do you do with it?
Yeah.
Like, what's the next step? Because you can't stay in that, right? So what is the next step?
You can. It'd just be could be really messy.
Yeah.
Some people do.
Yeah, they do.
The acknowledgement is the word here, though. The holding on to the knowledge of something. And acknowledging where you are is vital, because you are where you are and you are who you are within that. And there's another form of acknowledgement that naturally arises, and it's called gratitude, right? It's not only acknowledging what is, it's acknowledging the good that is in addition to that. And that's where we see gratitude is very powerful, because it naturally occurs when you start to acknowledge where you're at.
Yeah.
It starts to come up, right?
Definitely. And, I think sometimes people have this this misunderstood perception about what and how life is supposed to go.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
if everything goes in my favor, right? Like
Right.
Hunger Games, right? All in your favor. If everything goes in your favor,
Right.
life's great, right? But if something happens and it doesn't go the way that I want to go, then that's bad, right? But I'm gonna get a little spiritual here because
Yeah, please
people
do.
understand that, you know, the source or God or the creator, whatever name you choose to use, right?
Yeah.
All of the things that are happening to you, right, came from that source, came
Yeah.
from the same source. So it's not that when things are going great, oh yeah, you know, God is showing me favor, or the source is showing me favor, or the creator is showing me favor. When things aren't going the way you want it to, guess what? Source, creator, they're still showing you favor. Like that's
Yeah. Yeah.
because you may not understand why you didn't get that job, or why that relationship went south, or you know why whatever it is that you wanted to work out didn't work out. You may not understand it in the moment, but I guarantee you later on in life, if you can look back at it, and then you will be able to see it. It always reveals itself. And I remember,
That's beautiful. Yeah.
you know, I remember when my dad died and I was 6 years old, and I had the hardest time, like up into adulthood, I had the hardest time, right, with it. And a lot of it was I just didn't understand it. And I didn't understand why, you know, I was left to be raised by my mom, and my dad wasn't there. But later on, I came to realize that, you know, he was extremely abusive and he had threatened to kill her. And when he died of a heart attack, leaving his apartment with a weapon on him. And if he
Wow.
did not have
Wow.
that heart attack, who would have known what he would have came back and did to her? But also further, where would I be right now? Where would my sister be, you know, right now? And so I had to come to grips with the fact that, you know, as hard as it was to understand it, everything happens for a reason, everything in divine timing, everything in, you know, we may not get it. We may not even
Yeah.
like it. It may be hard as heck.
Yeah.
Like it may be painful, right? All of those things. But a part of it, and you mentioned acceptance, but another word that I want to bring into this is surrender. And what surrender is
Yeah.
saying, you know what? I have to trust the fact that, you know, again, source, creator, God, you know, angels, whatever, universe, whatever term you use to identify, knows what they're doing. And I have to just trust the fact
Isn't that interesting, right? Like the universe, the world knows what it's doing.
Yep.
Life knows what it's doing.
Yep.
But we think, you know, this is where I think we get hung up, is we think that we're great with our memory, that we have solid memories of everything that's ever happened to us, that we're great judges of characters and situations, and that we're great predictors of things.
Mm-hmm.
And we're terrible at all of those things. Like memory is faulty, right? Our judgment is often skewed by how we perceive the world, and our predictions are based off of that too. So we're out there, before we speak it, we're out there speaking it based on what we played out in our mind. So, I mean, a lot of people think they know what's going to happen next.
Listen.
Yeah, listen. Right? Okay. I'm about to write this book. Listen, right? Like,
listen, okay.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. I had to come to terms with, even when it comes to, you know, like affirming certain things.
Yeah.
I can only think so big, right? Just based off of my experiences. So when I'm asking for stuff, right, we talk about like manifestation, and we talk about, you know, putting things out there to the universe. That's great. And don't stop doing it. However, also understand that sometimes that thing may not come because what you're asking for, what you're expecting, is too small for your destiny. And because you're thinking so small based off of what you've experienced, what you've been through, right? You're not going to get that thing, right? Something bigger is probably coming. And I just like went through that whole phase of having to get to a place of saying, okay, you just gotta like trust, because you don't know what's coming. And I made a whole shift, you know, from, I was a therapist. I was a therapist for years, and was teaching doctoral students how to write proposals, how to put together business plans, how to develop healthcare businesses. And then one day said, why am I not doing that for myself? why am I not bidding on, wellness program design positions or jobs or consultant positions? Why am I not doing that?
Yeah.
And I hadn't thought about it. I was like, no, I'm a therapist, right? So I had to take myself out of the box, remove that part of my identity because it was limiting me and keeping me small. But because, again, of my past and perception and what other people have said that this is, what you are, you're a therapist. And I was like, oh, so much more than that. So I wasn't able to see the bigger. So I had to step back and say, you know what? Let's just see what happens, right?
Yeah.
It all started coming and it blew my mind.
Yeah.
Like I said, I surrender, right? It absolutely blew my mind.
I like that perspective because there's a lot of people that would be like, I failed, like it didn't happen, it's not happening for me, and they give up, they stop. But really, that wasn't what was in your destiny. That's not what was in your cards. That's not what was in your future. The God, source, universe had bigger plans or different plans for you, and that wasn't in alignment. And so to step back and say, like, what can I do differently, or how can I do it differently? And maybe I'm not seeing something. Maybe I am playing small, and start thinking, just changing that. It could be just 1 degree to the left or the right.
Yeah.
And boom, it opens up the way, the way that it was designed to.
There's an author that's going to come on our show, Laurel Erica, and she has a great concept on identity, right? And identity with a capital I versus identity with a lowercase I. And if you look at the letter I, it's shaped like a pillar, and it connects heaven and earth, right? So when we're coming from our identity where we're connected on the capital I, we're more powerful, right? But when we come to the lowercase I identity, we do what you did, right? That I'm a therapist. Right? That's what I do. And then there's this other part that says, well, step into your capital I for a minute and see that you're more than a therapist. Right?
Yeah. And allow yourself to expand. Right. It's the box. It's the, and that's why I mentioned earlier, it is traumatic, whether you view it or not, to only live a life that someone else has told you that you are supposed to live, right? Oh, I want you to be a doctor, right? Our parents, and I'm a parent now, so I get it. Our parents want us to be successful and they want us to, have these careers. But guess what? Like every person that comes here has a path, right? Has a purpose. And as a parent, sometimes I don't know my child's purpose. I don't know, so what I can do is I have to trust that him, even at 3 years old, knows and has some idea of what he is supposed to be doing, which way in which he's supposed to be going. My job is to help to guide him. And so like we have to really, I think, release control. We try to control a lot. We try to control, like, yes, I'm going to be a therapist and I'm going to do this for 20 years and I'm going to do this for 30 years. And I have women who come to me all the time in their 50s and 60s who have lived these unfulfilled lives because they've been in these careers and they married the people that they thought they were supposed to marry, and they did all the things, they checked the boxes, right? Check. And in their 50 and 60, they're like, I'm so unhappy. Girl, because you haven't lived your life the way that you wanted to live your life.
Girl or boy, come on. It's amazing. The idea here with, I read some of your bio about in the workplace too, and so these things, when you're working with humans, which I hope most companies work with humans, you might hire somebody for their skills, but you're getting the whole person. Right. And people have emotions and people have history and people have traumas that they're working through. And so as an organization, it doesn't matter what kind it is, to remember that you're working with people, with humans. That's going to matter in the long run, because the way you treat them is going to affect how they show up.
Definitely.
Right.
Yep. Definitely. And even when going into design wellness programs, a lot of the work has to start with leadership, because, there has to be an acceptance and a culture and an advocacy for like creating that culture of wellness in the workplace. And like you just said, what happens is, it's like, okay, come to work and just do your job. Those days are over. That was, back in the day, and it worked the way, I guess, however they designed it to work. But now it's a little different. These
Yeah, it caused all of us trauma.
yeah.
Yeah, it worked perfectly.
Right.
We're all screwed up.
Exactly, right? And, like my mom worked 10 to 12-hour days at times. Like I rarely saw her. And of course that impacted, I think, not just us as children, but also her. And I think that now as leaders, right, in organizations, there has to be a different approach that is taken. You need to actually get to know your people. You actually have to know like what's going on with them. Do they have children, right? As a mom, my needs are very different from a woman that doesn't have kids. As a dad, the needs are very different from a man who does not have children. And so, you have to kind of get the background into who your people are and then actually start to, ask them questions. Well, how are you doing? How is home? And the pandemic, here we go with my serial optimism. The pandemic was the pandemic, but there were also some pluses to the pandemic because a lot of people had to work from home and their jobs got a glimpse into who they are outside of work. And it was like, oh, okay, right. So there's toddlers running on the screen, there's spouses talking in the background, there's, people coming in with, I know y'all seen it with the shirts and the underwear on the bottom, just
the guys in the mirror and their ass cheeks are hanging out, right? Like they're like, we could see you, man. Like,
right. But I think a part of that made us human again with each other. And it made us start to look at each other as people again. And it was like, oh, okay, you deal with some of the things that I'm dealing with. Or, oh, that's your life. That's what you're like. Oh, okay, I understand now why when you come to work, maybe you're tired sometimes, or maybe you're drinking, tons and tons of coffee, or maybe, whatever the case may be. It gave us a glimpse into that. And it cannot stop. Leadership has to make sure that
or the monster, right? Like, yeah.
That's right.
When we're gone, Monster Energy stocks are going to go just plummet.
That's my legacy. Is that they'll fill a blip that day. It'll be like, what happened? Ryan must be gone.
Yeah. Send him some flowers and some energy drinks.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's just I think the new reality, and there has to be, it has to be designed. We can't expect leaders to just know.
It's not going away because if you're in a space of being an employee or a partner or whatever it is, when you get a taste of that, oh, I got some freedom, you're not giving it up.
Oh yeah.
Right. Okay. So leaders are going to have to learn to work with that. And with what we do, we don't wake people up to live differently. We don't do that. But when they do wake up and they feel stuck, that's where we step in, because we start to teach them foundational principles for living a giant life. But emotional intelligence is a lifelong process. It's not like you just go to a course and now you're emotionally intelligent, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
It's it takes training. It takes exposure. I think that I just went to a summit, the Mother Honestly Summit, a few weeks ago. And a lot of it was around, navigating the workplace as moms. But there was a lot of research just in one, being remote works. It works. So there have been studies that shows it. And it kind of relieves the pressure. I work for myself, so I don't really, I'm not in that space, but working for myself and being remote works wonderfully. I can do things with my toddler. I have time to go to the doctor. I have time to go to the gym. I have time to, meditate. I have time to do all my wellness pieces and get my work done. So one, that works. But the other thing is that, we have companies that are putting perks in place. So they put these wellness programs in place, or wellness perks in place, and they're not even being used. Did you know that only 6% of people actually use the employee assistance program?
No.
Yeah. Right. So wouldn't it make more sense for you to ask your people, what do you need for your wellness? And then let me give you something that you can use. Right?
I'm like, hey, let me take care of you. Yeah. I'm going to give you what I think you need.
Yeah.
Also 94% down the drain.
Exactly. And that's what's happening. And that is what is still happening. And that is why I said I have to change lanes, because I was getting people in private practice that were, employees. And I'm like, okay, so don't you have an EAP? Because like they would have to pay me. And I'm like, don't you have an EAP? And they're like, no, I don't use my EAP because it's directly correlated with my employer. So wouldn't it make more sense if the employer says, hey, every month or whatever, you have a stipend and you're able to use this stipend on wellness activities that work for you, whether that's rock climbing,
whatever it is,
whatever that is that works for you, right? Wouldn't that make more sense?
Cocaine, like whatever. Hopefully not that, right? But if you're productive, then we'll let it slide.
But that has to do a lot with emotional intelligence, right? Like, I'm just going to give you what I think you need and go use it. And it's like,
well, yeah, there could be, this concept from a leader of, I don't need emotional intelligence. That's for employees. But emotional intelligence says, I want to know what's going on in your world, because the more I know what's going on in your world, the more I can create programs that will serve that. Yes. And the more you matter, the more our company matters.
Yes.
Right.
Which in turn is going to increase productivity. It's going to increase morale. Right. Like, it's a place where they'll want to stay. They'll be more productive. They don't want to leave.
Well, look at the research on quiet quitting right now. How many people are quiet quitting? They're not saying anything. They're just doing what's necessary, and taking an income. And that's it.
Bathroom breaks on the clock, that kind of thing, because it adds up to, X amount of hours at the end of the year. It's like 2 weeks of vacation time for just going to the bathroom on the clock, right?
And that's why, one, I don't feel safe. So I don't feel like I can tell you what I need. Two, I don't feel like you're going to listen, right? And actually do something about it. But the other thing is that I don't feel valued enough to be able to do that, right? I may tell you, and because I don't feel valued, you may say, okay, well, let me just bring someone in here that will just do the work that I'm telling you to do, but you need too much, So people don't feel safe, right? The workplace for most is just not a safe environment. And we have to change that. And trying to get companies to understand that you have to take care of your people, because your people are the ones who take care of your business, right? So you have to care of your people. Getting people to understand that and make the connection sometimes can be difficult, you know, and it blows my mind every single time.
Well, I had a leader once. I won't call him a leader. He was a manager. We'll call him that, because he doesn't deserve the title of a leader on that. But when I was going through my divorce, it was really hard emotionally. Right. So I was struggling. I was still showing up at work, but I was struggling. And I said, I know this isn't the company's problem. And he says, yeah, it's not our problem. You need to get over it. And that really impacts things, right? Like when your leader or your manager doesn't care, then you start to not care. And you could be the higher person, but for me, I get a little bit like edgy and grudgy, and I'm like, I don't want to do anything for you now, because I know who I'm working with.
Yep, definitely. Right? Definitely. And, a better response, at the time would have been, okay, one, what do you need? Right? How can we support you through this? But the other thing is, do you need to take some time, right? Is there a project that I could find for you to complete maybe while you're at home, where you don't have to be in the office? There's options. And, again, we're going to go back to the way that people are structured. Well, this is what I saw, and this is what I know. So I'm just going to do what I know, right? Me going outside of the box is really hard. But if managers and leaders and, just executives would open their minds to say, I'm open to possibilities. I don't know what to do, but I'm open to options, right? To make this work. There were so many different ways that situation could have been handled for you.
Yeah, truly. And even with what we do, Ryan and I work in RV sales full time, and we do this is our passion project. And so we've been doing this, alongside that. But working with other members of our team, even finding out what their needs are, has them want to support us in what we're doing. And so we, it allows you to come to agreements and understanding of where people are coming from when they say certain things. And it's really important. And it goes upline as much as it goes downline. Like an employee has as much responsibility in that creation as an executive or a leader would have. Right.
Yeah.
It's a co-creation. It's not like it's just on leadership to figure this out. Employees have the ability to develop their emotional intelligence too, whether their company provides it or not.
Yeah,
right?
definitely. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, definitely.
We have a culture in our current company that we're with. It's night and day difference than what Nick experienced. Like one of our gals that works there, she went through a little mental health crisis,
Mhm.
and every single day, the owner and his son called her 2 or 3 or 4 times a day
Mhm.
for weeks to check on her, make sure she was okay, to see what they could do to
Yeah.
support and help. And that's the difference,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like that kind of caring. And now, guess what? Even though she knows she could go make more money
Yep.
somewhere else, or
Oh,
she is not
yep.
leaving.
Yep.
Like she is not leaving because of the care and support and love and how amazing they were through
Yep.
that. And also, she went through cancer, and they
Mm.
were just there for her. They
Mhm.
were just there, and
Yep.
so she will never leave that company.
Definitely. Yeah, and you know what? Honestly, Ryan, there's so much research out there that even shows how it's not the money that keep people, there. It's not, because I would rather, make less money just like her and work somewhere that makes me feel great about myself, like
yeah, yeah,
excited to come to work because I know the people are awesome. It's a relaxed environment, it's a caring environment. I would rather make less money and work there than work somewhere where I go in and I just feel like, a person that's there to just do my job. Just
yeah,
do your job. I don't care about what you have going on. And research has shown, like, that's it. That's it. It's the care, right? It's that emotional intelligence. It's the letting people know that you value them as people. That's what keeps people in your company. That is how you get your company to be more productive and to increase their revenue.
That's where we see the giant in people. It's already there. Like you said, we're all born with some gift,
Yep.
but it gets covered up and masked by whatever happens in life. And to have people around you that support you and hold you up without an agenda,
Yep.
right? There are some people that'll support you and hold you up, but they have something behind it. They've got this forked tongue, right?
Yep.
But there are a lot like these gentlemen that there was no agenda there. Their agenda was her, right?
Mhm.
How is she doing? How is her well-being? That's all that mattered. And that's so vital, right?
Definitely. I love that.
So tell me about your vision for you as you move forward in your creations. What have you pictured and predicted for you in your future?
Yeah, so I'm actually I shifted from doing therapy to coaching and working with entrepreneurs and
Mm,
um helping them to heal and go through their trauma and all that, because it was impacting their business in a negative way. But moving forward, what I'm doing is I'm turning that actual coaching program into a course and group program. So
awesome.
I'm going to be working with people, and the whole goal is there's a part of it that is the wellness piece, but then also helping them to design the business offerings and to revamp their businesses, because I want to mass produce, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's my term.
Yeah,
I want to mass produce emotionally intelligent founders and executives, and
I love that. Yeah, yeah.
because we need it, right? Because you
Good
can't,
morning.
it's one thing, and a lot of people are solopreneurs, so they start these businesses. But
Yeah,
what happens when it's time for you to start actually leading people? If you haven't dealt with that wellness piece, if you haven't dealt with your own, trauma, if you haven't built that emotional intelligence yourself for you, right? Just between you and you, what's going to happen when you start building a team?
are you
So
talking to me or?
I'm,
Yeah.
who I'm talking to.
That's like in the mirror between you
Right,
and you.
right. I'm like, I'm feeling attacked. Jeez. Yeah.
So so I want to mass produce these emotionally intelligent, wellness conscious executives and
Mm,
founders and CEOs, and get them to build and scale these companies full of just great environments, because it starts with small businesses, right?
mhm.
That's where it starts.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. Legacy. So I know that's there. So that's part of the legacy too. I see that I can hear that in it, is to leave this gift. And you're not waiting. We had Steve Chandler on a few weeks back. He's an author, just powerful powerful human. He's got a view of life that I think is untouched. But he talked about legacy, and he's like, why would I wait to die to leave a legacy?
Definitely.
Right. And, you know, that word legacy comes from legatia, which means to gift by will. Like this is a gift you're giving to the world. Right.
Yep. Definitely.
And so can you go into your legacy a little bit more of what it is you're giving back to the world in addition to that emotional intelligence? Like, why are you doing this?
Yeah, like I remember, you know, starting my first business and I didn't have a blueprint. No one was there to, you know, say, do it this way, do it that way. I just kind of learned, you know, from experience. And my business now is 14 years old. And I want to help the people that don't necessarily have access to resources or don't have, you know, someone else, you know, over their shoulder saying, hey, you should do this, don't do this, do that. And so for me to do that, I had to shift out of one-on-one, which working with me one-on-one is way more expensive than being able to work with me in a group format. And so I wanted to be able to provide that. And so that's why I'm doing it. Literally is I believe that, again, we all have a healed version of us that we need to, at some point in our lives, tap into. And I want to make sure that I help as many people as I can tap into the healed versions of themselves. But while tapping into that healed versions, they get to create and design these lives that they really, really, really want to live. And they get to actually embark on that, because I think that's so important while we're here, that everyone gets a chance to do that. And I know you said this is like y'all, you know, your passion project, but you get to do it, right? Like have fun, and because I love y'all, like y'all are like, so this is like so awesome. And, you know, but you get to bring this to people just
we love you too. So just so we're clear.
Thank you. You know, so I want to do that and help other people do that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's amazing how many facets there are to healing. So many variations. I love the word fractals of healing. And you're going to do it in a way that I can't, right? You're going to reach people that I can't, but we're all in this journey of healing people. And it often goes back to something in our life that was impactful that we want to pass on to others of, look, I went through some hard things. I don't want you to necessarily go through that. So I want to put you on my shoulders, so to speak, and show you an easier way or a better way to do it so that you don't have to go through the hard stuff. Right. There's a lot of freedom that comes in that. And for me, that's what I want, is freedom. I want to be free from my mind. I want to be free from my past. I want to be free and, you know, to travel and do things in my world here. And so that's what I want to teach people as I go forward is how do you do that? How do you become free? And what you're sharing here, emotional intelligence, is a huge, huge component in that.
Definitely. Yeah. And that's another whole, you know, part of why you even, you know, have to take the time to embark on your wellness journey, right? Is freedom. It's literally the freedom, you know, and just being able to just be, I think, you know, growing up in Brooklyn, was I don't want to say taught, but shown that, you know, you always have to watch, you know, look behind your back and watch over your shoulder, and, you know, just always, you know, on guard, you know. And I remember when I moved to Atlanta, and the environment was just different, you know, and even now, like, it's just different. Things are slower. Things are, you know, I don't have those same, you know, thoughts. I don't have to, you know, watch my back all the time. And, you know, and that's, to me, that's a level of freedom. You know, because I can use my mind and my energy, you know, for other things. I can focus on other things. So I think even, you know, shifts like that, you know, help. And we don't always understand like what it means to strive for freedom. So that was like the perfect word.
Yeah. Awesome. I love that. You know, one of the things that you shared about healing, right, is a lot of people think they need to be healed before they can heal others. Can you speak about that briefly?
Yeah, no, I totally disagree.
Good.
No, I totally disagree.
We're on the same page here.
One, because what is being healed, right? Like, what does that look like? Because, again, I think it's a constant, decision that you have to make, like to work on that thing or to work on those things. And, every year on my birthday, which starts my new year, so I don't go off of January 1st, but my new year starts when my birthday comes.
Yeah.
Every year, in my new year, I pick a thing that I'm going to work on for that year. And I plan to do that, just continuously. And it ranges, it could be my patience. It could be my trust. It could be my working on my anger, whatever that thing is. But it's a constant decision. It's a constant, it just requires constant attention, always having to do something. So I don't know if we all ever reach a place of being healed. And I hear people say that, well, I went to therapy for this. And I'm like, great. And when you went to therapy, it unpacked a layer and that was fine. But guess what? There's another layer. To you, right? So people don't understand, like you have to constantly be working on your healing. It's a constant thing. So
the word healing means whole, right? So when you're whole, truly, you might still be messy. I'm messy. Let me just say that I'm messy inside. So if people could see what's going on here, they'd be like, "Oh shit!" Right?
Me too.
Yeah, but there's a wholeness. There's an acknowledgement of that. There's an acceptance of that. Mm-hmm. There's gratitude for that. And the more people can do that, the more whole they feel, the more healed they feel. Mm-hmm. Right. So it's not like you're missing parts. It's not like that. Truly, it's embracing who you already are. It's more of that.
Yep, definitely.
And I hear people say, well, this is who I am and there's nothing I can do about it. That's not what we're talking about here.
Mm-mm. Yeah. Not at all. Not at all. And you can be who you are, and that's great. And I don't believe that you have to, don't try to work on everything at one time. Yeah. Don't do that, because that just becomes a mess and you'll just get frustrated and overwhelmed. But, if you pick, like I said, I do one thing. If I pick like one thing that I'm going to focus on, I work on that one thing. Yeah. But when I work on that one thing, guess what happens? Some other layers get exposed. I didn't even probably know were there. And then I'm like, okay, next I'll work on that,
Yeah, beautiful.
It's a constant, thing. And it's not pressure. It's not like, oh my gosh, I gotta like fix this right now. No, just take your time.
Yeah, we got time.
Your whole life. Yeah.
Yeah, until we don't. Yeah. And then it doesn't matter. So yeah. Ryan, what other thoughts are you having at this point?
I love the just the back and forth and being able to share each other's insight and perspectives and learn different ways of looking at things. And that's what a lot of this is about too, is finding what works for you. And that's why we bring people on the show. And Fanike, it's amazing the things that you've gone through. Tough things. Some very heavy things, but grateful that you've been through those things and then made the decisions that you've made to be to where you are right here, right now with us, to be able to share your perspective and your views with our audience and other people in your life, because it's making a difference, and those people are being able to connect, and they're going to be able to grow, and they're embarking. I love that word. That was a great word to use. They're just not traveling or just going for a little jaunt,
and not just barking.
Yeah, right? Not barking. They're embarking. They're going. That to me is like there is serious commitment behind an embarking. And they're doing it, and they're getting to learn from the things that you've been through to be able to help them in their lives, and it's just like one more tool for them. And so thank you for doing that, and thank you for blessing our lives today, because I learned a lot, and I can't wait to talk to you more in the future, see where you're going and how we can maybe help and be there for each other. It's always great to have more friends. I love friends, and if we ever meet, I've got an offer for you. I'll a free hug.
Oh yeah, I love hugs.
Yay!
I'm a hugger, so
perfect.
That's awesome. Anything else you want to share today? Just
keep going. That's it. Just keep going. It's not always easy. It's not pretty. It's not pretty. I will guarantee that. And it's hard as hell sometimes. But just keep going. That's it.
That's
Keep
beautiful.
going.
Well, let's wrap up there. That's a beautiful show. We'd love to have you back as an expert on our expert panels when we do those. And so you'll see invitations for those as we move forward. So we bring guests back and talk about a topic, and it's totally off the cuff. So
Let's do it.
it's beautiful. For
If
those
there's any way we can serve you too, just please reach out.
I sure will. Thank you,
And
guys.
I won't interrupt Nick anymore.
Yeah, no, but hang with us because we're gonna wrap up the video, but hang on after.
Okay.
For those that are watching, remember you're exactly where you're supposed to be. So you are who you are right now. You've got all the resources around you. There's nothing that you're lacking, even though it might seem that way. So start stepping. Even little things will make a big difference in your life. So don't quit. That's the biggest thing, is don't stop, right? And a final petition here is, if you know somebody, a literary agent or a film agent that can help us reach our goal of getting the book made into a movie, reach out to us and let us know that, because we're working toward that. And so that's just one petition I think I might make as often as I remember it, because I might not remember every show.
All right.
So for those that are watching, thank you. Fanike, thank you for your wisdom. Make it a giant day. We'll see you in the next episode.
Love you too.
Bye, everybody.